Hello, folks. Welcome again to the Purple View. Purple, inspiration, imagination, good taste, distinction. Purple View. Now, for first-time viewers, I'd like to give you, an overview of what this channel is about. We're talking about the construction industry, architecture, interior design, landscape design, zoning, planning, procedures for acquiring building permits. In short, anything building. The last video we talked about the differences between an interior designer and an interior decorator. Now today's topic is even more intriguing. We want to talk about the distinctive job differences between an architect and a draftsman. Now there's been a school of thought that the two of them do the same thing. They work with an architect and a draftsman are the same. In the local parlance, they just say, draw a plan, but you couldn't be more wrong. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, in the colonial era, there were virtually no architectural institutions or even technical institutions. So, what the colonial people did was they trained the locals to be foremen, and these foremen helped in the construction process, and they were later on elevated to become foremen. From then on, I think some technical institutions sprang up, and these guys trained to be draftsmen. So you can see the chronology from a foreman to building inspector to a draftsman, and they've been with us, since the colonial times. So it's only normal that lots of Ghanaians are working with these draftsmen, and draftsmen have been with us, for quite some time. But let's look at the skill set of the draftsman. All right, definitely they have some skills. They have a keen eye for detail. Yeah, they have a keen eye. They pay attention to details. They acquire excellent understanding of architectural softwares, maybe AutoCAD, Revit, to perform at high efficiency. They develop shop drawings for specific components in the design, and obviously drafting skills, which comes in at the end of the design process. I mean, that's it. That's the end of the skill set. Now let me digress a bit. If you want a draftsman to do a design for you, this is what it means. These drawings are not going to be based on any site analysis. These drawings are not going to be based on the lifestyle of whoever they're designing for. I mean, it's not going to be based on any tangible budget. So these are just arbitrary space allocations, and you have no clue what you're going to get. Draftsmen are not designers. What does an architect bring to the table? Okay, we go through site analysis. Even after meeting the client, we pay a visit to the site. The architects visit the site to do some site analysis with regards to solar radiation, air temperature, wind direction, precipitation. And these things are quite imperative. They're quite critical to the finish of the design, to the final, talk about solar radiation, the sun, electromagnetic rays that are going to hit the building, and with a tropical climate, you want to orientate your building north-south. Usually the western portions of the building are where we have the solar rays hitting the building. So most often than not, you have the architects putting non-habitable rooms on that wing. That's the laundries, stores, sanitary facilities, bathrooms, and things like that. So the architect That's that. After that, they talk to the client. You know, that's when the brief is developed. You know, the brief is development is when the client tells the architect what he intends to use the building for, and you know, through that, the architect is able to determine the spaces that would be imperative to be included in the building. Of course, in a lot of the cases, the clients know what they want, and they tell them, you know, they want spaces A, B, C, D, and the architect uses his creative ability to, you know, develop those spaces in an effective, you know, these spaces have effective functional relationships, you know, and you know, through the interactive process, you know, the architect is able to decipher the personality traits of who he's designing for. The architect is able to decipher the lifestyle of who he's designing for. And this has a tremendous impact on the conceptual design process. Now, people don't seem to appreciate that. These procedures that I just enumerated are key for any good design to be conceived. Because if there's no good site analysis, there's no interactive process. In fact, the architect has to be in sync with, you know, the lifestyle and personality traits of this individual. And this definitely impacts his conceptuals. Now, the architect is also designing, you know, to a budget. I mean, these designs are not done in isolation. Designs are done, you know, after that initial interaction. There's a budget involved. So depending on the budget, it impacts the material choice of the architect. You know, it impacts the finishes that the architect is going to use. You know, so there's a myth that architects design for only rich people, but that is very untrue. An architect designs to a budget, so the architect can design for a laborer, right up to the president or an executive director. So that is a wrong myth. Okay, now coming back to the process, you know, if you develop to the schematic design stage, and that is a stage that the architect shows the interpretation of what they had discussed at the brief development stage. You know, a visual aesthetic, so that the client sees what, you know, the discussions has come up with. Sometimes we do the working model for the client to really appreciate what has gone into the discussion, and you know, how the building is going to look like, you know. And like I was saying before, its designs are not done in isolation. It has to melt into the flow of the existing environment. So the site analysis will determine that I talked about before, will determine the how the building is even going to be placed on the site. Now, the placement of the building on the site will affect ventilation, it will affect daylighting. So these things are not done arbitrarily. You know, it is based on that site analysis that will determine how the building should be placed, you know, on the site. You know, I talked about wind direction, solar paths, and all that, you know, so that knowing the solar path, you don't want to go and place the building with the habitable rooms facing west. Obviously, you're going to have problems with, you know, heat exchange and all that. Then, you know, drafting comes in at the tail end of the design process. You know, so, you know, look at that. After all that I've just enumerated, Then comes drafting. Folks, let me give you a metaphor that vividly, distinguishes between the work of an architect and a draftsman. Imagine that, think of a building. If I think of a building as a beautiful cake, it's the draftsman's job to write down the recipe. He's the invent the cake. He's not even going to bake it. All he's expected to do is write down the recipe or instruction for it. This metaphor explains what I've talked about for the past 10 minutes in clear detail. Folks, thank you for watching. This is the Purple View. Please subscribe to this channel for more information on the general architecture in Ghana. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to write at the bottom of the page. Thank you for watching. Looking forward to talking to you soon.